Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. I've got Mr. Kasim Aslam coming on, and we're going to talk about why people get it wrong with human talent. In other words, how do you hire people? And, what types of people you want to hire, why you want to hire them, and what are the mistakes that you can make in doing so? And utilizing talent, not just from your own country, but utilizing talent from around the world. We're having a really good in-depth conversation on this. Take out your pen, your paper, and take notes on this. You're going to get a lot of eyebrow raises on this particular episode. And if those of you have questions or you want to know more about your business and what you can do to predictably raise that revenue up and increase your profitability, reach out to me at Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com and let me know what you're looking for and we'll have a conversation. All right, let's go talk to Kasim right now. Hey, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Kasim, is awesome to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Doug. I appreciate you.
Yeah, so folks, I've been chatting with this gentleman prior to, and we've been doing having a lot of reflections on history and our roots and just having a good time laughing here. So I have a feeling this will be an entertaining episode for all of you. But I do also want to ask you, get a pen, paper, digital notepad, whatever. If you're driving, pull over to the side of the road, please. And take notes on this because it's a super, super important subject, especially in the advent of the AI age today. And we're going to talk about why many people are getting it wrong with hiring human talent. And those of you who have ever made a bad hire, just raise your hands. I know it's all of you. Um, and and so we're going to talk about how not to do that and how to delegate, how to buy back your time, and how to navigate this in the AI world with emotional IQ, EQ, and everything that's going on. So, welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you being here. Let's start out with the question: why are people getting it wrong when they're hiring human talent?
It's forgivable as far as I'm concerned because of the way that we're taught. If you take any business book off the shelf, and I mean all of them, including the greats, people that I love, Stephen Covey, John C. Maxwell, Ray Dalio, um, we are taught to think of, hire, train, manage, and fire people as though they're commodities. And it's an easier way to contextualize the resource, right? Like it's create a process and then find an easily identifiable and easily hired human and just put them in place, and then the process will run and the human will run the process and go on about your day is more or less the business ethos that every MBA is handed.
Mhm.
And the reason I think that this is catastrophically flawed is because, and this will get real weird, Doug, but I promise to unpack it in a way I hope that makes sense. Every human being is a miracle. Like I believe, I think that's true. It's a religious truth, but even if you're not a religious person, like every person is so unique and so custom that to treat people as though they're commodities nullifies all of the value a human brings to an endeavor. And that becomes exponentially more true in the world of AI, where you really do have thoughtful commodities. You have a commodity that can think now. And generally speaking, as a commodity, thinks better than a human. And the reason we don't like thinking of humans as non-commodities is because it's a non-scalable endeavor. If you think about a person as truly unique, truly custom, truly a miracle, that's a non-scalable endeavor. And now we can't create a business that scales, right? The issue, though, is if people only do that which is scaling, they can only do that which AI can do, and you have forced obsolescence in your organization.
Mhm.
Because if the only thing you have a human being doing is something that scales, well, AI now eats that alive, and we've flattened everything down to ubiquity, which doesn't mean it's not important anymore. It just means it's no longer valuable. So the new endeavor, the new approach that everybody needs to take is, what can AI not do? And that's the human endeavor. And so to put these in practical terms, let's say that if we're trading commodities, if you have an ear of corn and I have an ear of corn and we swap, you and I are no better or worse off than we were moments before, right? That's how you know it's a commodity because it's interchangeable. It's one for one. It's pari passu. Now, if you have a CPA and I have a CPA and we swap, that could be the end of my business and my entrepreneurial life, right? Because my CPA has all my context, all my background, all that. And it doesn't matter if these people were born in the same place, had the same education, same background, same pedigree, same understanding. They're still completely independent of each other. So we have to start thinking of humans as though they're true and literal miracles. And the problem with most entrepreneurs these days is they tend to view people in the exact opposite frame. They view them as problems. You hear people say things like, "Oh, there's no such thing as good help, and if you want it done, do it yourself," et cetera, et cetera. And those people are they tend to be the problem within their organization, in my experience. I have a dozen businesses in my portfolio. I've built six multi-million-dollar organizations. I've had two exits, and I'm not any smarter than anybody listening. But what I have done really well, and I think the only thing that maybe I'm world class at, is finding truly extraordinary talent and then getting out of their way, which is step two. So finding extraordinary talent is actually not that hard. They're everywhere. I think every person has the ability to be extraordinary in the right context. But then when you find them, authorship creates ownership. And most of us don't allow people who work for us to author anything. And so it's kind of that one-two punch. It's find a miracle. And if you expect miracles, if you look for miracles, you will find them. And I have a whole framework for doing that, by the way. Your listeners can have it absolutely free. And then once you found that miracle, get out of their way. Stop managing the subjective. Stop tweaking. Stop assuming that you're right. If you're the smartest person working in your organization, you have a very, very, very flawed organization. So that's more or less the thesis that I've been working from, and I'm happy to unpack that further wherever you think we need to go.
Yeah, I want to go back to like, so a lot of people, firstly, they'll say, well, finding this miracle talent is very hard because, they'll think of it that way because, I'm looking for a certain type of this or a certain type of that, and I want them to do a certain type of job, and I just really can't find people who have the right attitude, the right this, the right that, right? I've heard these things throughout my career. How do we refute that in a way that they go, oh, never thought of it that way?
Yeah. I'll say to start with, and this is going to get incendiary, so let's see if I get canceled. Uh, my first my first assumption is they're fishing in the wrong pond.
Mhm.
And so to dive deeper, you and I started this conversation before we began recording, talking about our heritage, and both of us have deep roots in uh, U.S. history. Your family came over on the Mayflower, the original Mayflower, it sounded like.
Yes.
I'm related to Thomas Jefferson. Uh, my mother's maiden name is Caraway. The Caraways go back to the 1600s. They came over actually as indentured servants, back when you could indenture yourself in order to pay your way. I say all that to say I love this country. I'm grateful to have been born here. The opportunity available to me is I was a welfare baby. I was raised by a blind single mother on Social Security disability in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and now I'm a decamillionaire. So God bless America. That's my obligatory statement, right? Happy to be here. And the labor pool here it's the leftovers. Because if you're a small business owner in the United States of America, who's really available and accessible to you? Anybody who's truly top tier talent, A, is working at a Fortune 1000, right? Because they want to go to Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, and play that ivory tower game, or they want to go to a startup that's going to offer them stock options and potentially make them a millionaire overnight, or most likely they work for themselves because it's so easy to be an entrepreneur here. And if you don't believe that, I don't think you're paying attention. So the people you're left with are the people that are left over. And I have a cousin like this who I love, by the way. We were raised together. He's like a brother to me. Work is not his jam. It's not his highest priority. Clocks in, clocks out, great dad, loves to vacation, but he can skate by doing next to nothing because that's what we built. We built a country that actually allows for that. So if you feel like you're fishing at the bottom of the barrel, you are. Go international. Go look at countries that don't have social safety nets. Look at Asia, Eastern Europe, North Africa, Latin America, and you will experience something that American employers have never experienced: gratitude.
Mm.
People don't need to work here for right or wrong, good or bad. That's just a fact. And I'm not trying to play politics. I'm a libertarian that hates other libertarians. So I don't agree with the right or the left. It's not a political statement. It's a fact. It's a fact in this country and most of the Western world now, most of the developed world, let's say, using air quotes, you actually don't have to work. You will be sheltered and you will eat. And that is an anthropological anomaly. in human history, adjusted for margin of error. That has never happened before. So it's resulted in a labor class that is actually very difficult to contend with. Go to where people are hungry, literally and figuratively. I love to hire out of Bogota, Colombia. I can pay people in Bogota, Colombia 3 to 5 times what they make domestically. They work from home, they work on a semi-flexible schedule, and I give them meaningful work. And you've never seen a human being run through walls the way these people run through walls. And it happens in, again, North Africa, East Asia, Eastern Europe. It's hubris to think the rest of the world doesn't produce as many intelligent people as we produce, right? Like you'd have to be a racist human being to believe that. But all the intelligent people that we're producing are being snapped up by organizations that can compete on levels of analysis that you can't afford to compete. Even if you could meet Microsoft's pay grade, you don't have $12 croissants in a high-rise
Mm,
conference room
mm,
and the fancy logo that people get to snap next to their LinkedIn profile. When you hire internationally, you become aspirational in the same way. Because somebody in India, somebody in the Philippines, somebody even in Turkey, somebody, people in these countries that just don't have access to the same level of opportunity, they look at you the way that a Stanford University grad looks at Google. Like, God, that's what I want. They're earning in the US dollar, they're working for an American company, and most importantly, and this is the important part, they're doing meaningful work. So if you've said, no, Kasim, I've tried to outsource before and it didn't work, what did you outsource? And then when I dig into it, they're like, well, they had to make 500 cold calls a day, or they had to sit in front of this spreadsheet and do this, this horrible soul-sucking data entry. Yeah, obviously that didn't work. What human in the world could do that job with any degree of consistency? That's why AI is showing us really it's a hierarchical substructure that we're being exposed to. Go find a top 1%er. And the way you do that is you make it hard. Pay more than anybody else is willing to pay. Let them work remotely, which you're hiring internationally, so they're going to do that anyway. Don't be the Gestapo. This whole like, oh, I screenshot your desktop every 45 seconds. What person wants to work for an organization like that? Giving meaningful work, treat them like an adult, and you will find people that will blow your freaking mind. A perfect example is the young man that's now my business partner in Pareto Talent. His name's Ivan Bunin. I hired him. He was a student in Poland. He's Ukrainian nationality. He's going to school in Poland. I found him on freelancer.com.
mm,
I started him at $1,200 a month total.
mm,
And I've never met a person that could solve problems more effectively. And flash forward, he became the leader of the tech team at Solutions A. I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I sold it in October of 2022 for an eight-figure sum to a SoftBank-backed MarTech company. Before I sold that, Yvonne was employee number 6. When we sold, we had 80 employees. He had a meteoric rise in the organization, became my CTO, managed my entire exit. If you've ever gone through an exit, it's like a 8-month proctology exam. It was horrible. He managed the whole damn thing. After we sold, he and I became business partners. Now he's one of my best friends. He owns 50% of Proto Talent. I've made the kid a millionaire. And he's not, I hate to say this because I love him to death. There are other examples out there like that. My first EA became my director of automations. My second EA became my director of social. I have an EA that just became, I own AEO.co, answer engine optimization. People don't know this, but SEO is dead. AEO is the new method of attaining traffic. And the gentleman that's running AEO.co, my executive director, started as my assistant. So these people are there, but you have to believe that people in international markets are actually capable of quote unquote real work, even though they have an accent, and so many of my contemporaries, US based entrepreneurs, they just can't wrap their head around offering director level, C level work to people that are outside of our borders. And I'm here to say, like, try it. When I sold Solutions 8, I had 40% margins in an industry that aims at 15% as a high watermark.
yeah,
But that's
yeah.
because I was hiring internationally and everybody else was hiring domestically.
And and this is the so my wife is actually from Poland. She was born in Poland,
Hmm.
right? Has a master's degree in mathematics, super brain, and we do work in a lot of Eastern European areas, right? And also in Colombia and Latin America, we do the same. And I've got people from South Africa, um, other parts of Africa who worked for us. And it was an eye-opening experience when I first started working with these people. We had a development company in Vietnam that
Mm.
we had. And the reason I'm saying this for everybody is from an American point of view, we don't really know what other cultures are like unless we've really traveled to these other cultures.
Right.
And when you go to these other cultures, what you realize is they're as intelligent or even sometimes far more intelligent than some of our American people that we, hang out with and look at and revere. And what the what I loved what you said is that these people are grateful for the work because somebody in Bogota, Colombia, if you can pay them 5 times, 3 times, 5 times what the average wage is in Bogota, it's life changing for them.
Oh yeah.
And it's still cost effective here.
Right.
Right. And so you can then get the top talent in these countries who are going to rival no matter what. I mean, you look at, Japan or China or any other country out there, Ukraine, there are very talented people in these countries of every country around the world. And so what I'm hearing you do is, because we do predictable revenue growth and profit, right? So we're looking at, okay, we're going to get the highest effectiveness out of it, what we can, but we're also going to have the highest efficiency of what we can, and we're going to be able to increase our profitability at the same time. So then when we go to exit, we're not going to get a 4.6 EBITDA. We're going to get a higher multiple. We're going to be far more intelligent in the way we work. And I agree with everything you said because I've experienced the same thing. People in other cultures, other countries are smarter in some disciplines than we are in the United States. And what they do is they don't look at us like we look at them.
Mm,
They look at us as, wow, this is an opportunity for me versus, well, I'm not taking that job for $15 an hour, like an American would do
right.
in a lot of cases. So I like the fact that you're saying fish in the right place. And, getting out of their way, the other thing that I would hear people say is, well, wait a minute, I got to provide structure and I got to have accountability and I've got to have this and I've got to have that. And and to some degree, I would support that. There is a basic level that we need to have,
Hmm.
but we don't have to micromanage them like taking screenshots every 45 seconds or whatever. Um, what we really want is results based.
I was just, yeah, manage to results. What is the output?
Right.
What is it that you're getting from this person? It's interesting. Even the 8 hour day is something that I think is it's romanticized by employers and villainized by employees. And I remember having a conversation with a buddy of mine who's a brilliant entrepreneur, very successful, but he was a little frustrated because he had this pseudo developer type young man working for him that was building these apps, and they're
Yeah.
doing great with these apps. And he's like, man, I don't think I'm getting a full day out of him. And he was just obsessing over the fact that he's like, I don't think I'm getting a full day out of him, just because he could tell with the communication cadence.
Yeah.
The kid was really responsive, then all of a sudden would go off the radar and then come back the next morning. And in my mind, I'm like, does it matter? Like you're crushing it. The guy's building these things for you that are really powerful. If he's figured out a way to gamify his role so that he can do, because that's the thing, is what I should have started this with is this young man was building stuff at a speed that was unusual to say the least.
Mm.
So like align your interests. Is your interest really to soak 8 hours a day out of somebody? And if it is, go get your jollies off however it is you get your off, I guess. But if your interest is, I want this, this result, this number of sales, this application developed, this thing written, this created, this found, this just, you know what I mean? Like, what's the desired end result? And when employers align their interest with employees, I actually did this poorly at Solutions 8. I wish I could go back. I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. We had $100 million in ad spend under management. And I had the best employees on the planet because of my approach. But I didn't align our interests. The way that I build and the way that I paid were different. I billed according to ad spend under management. I paid according to clients under management. Stupid. What I should have done was pay according to ad spend under management. Because what ended up happening is my employees would gamify my internal system and a smaller client and a bigger client, according to the way they were paid, was effectively the same. All I
Mhm.
wanted was them to have 25 to 30 clients. It didn't matter the ad spend. Well, if I had given them a percentage of the ad spend, I would have had employees that, would begin having 40, 50, 60 clients. It didn't matter because they wanted more ad spend because they'd make more money. We ended up
Exactly.
changing it towards the end right before we sold, and I saw the increase in efficiency. Um, so that's a mistake that I hope I never make again. The thing that I like doing now, what we did at AEO.co, we've carved out 10% of the net profit for the employees, and we're showing everybody the profit numbers, which most employers are afraid to do. But what I like about doing that is it puts the employees in a position of it incentivizes efficiency. It's a data-driven endeavor. We're analyzing how LLMs are sourcing their citations, which takes a lot of grunt work, which means that we have to bring on people to manage some of these processes. Well, every new person I bring on decreases the bottom line, decreases the net profit, decreases the distribution of that profitability, incentives aligned. And so I think when you can manage to those aligned incentives, you know, that's the way to really put people in a position to where we're all pulling in the same direction for the same reasons in the same way.
Yeah, and so what I'm hearing is a theme that we used to call hiring top producers, hiring
Mm,
superstars,
yeah.
right? So in this, and so folks, to back up what you were just saying, Kasim, is like, do you care if your sales team, your sales member, like if you had a team and let's say their quota was $30,000 a month per rep, but they're hitting $45,000 a month per rep and they work 2 hours a week. Do you really care?
Do you really care? I know. Yeah.
You
But
don't.
some people do, dude. Like some employers just get their, undies in a wad
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they just have this feeling, this ethos, this thinking.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but yeah, and that's why I like it to cut both ways. The incentives are aligned on both ends. If you overperform, you get paid accordingly. If you underperform, you get paid accordingly.
Right.
Um, and that puts you in a position of, and that's the thing about hiring top tier talent. Winners want to win, and money is how
Always.
we keep score.
Always.
So employers that, what I tell people. If you want to know how to get a top tier talent, you have to pay 10% more than the high water mark. I've spent 20 years studying this. 10% more than the high water mark will get you an A player. Now, most people mishear me. They think like, okay, 10% more, that's not too bad. It's also not what I said. 10% more than the high water mark. Let's say, just to use napkin math, because I'm a high school dropout and I'm not good at math. If the window for a role is 75 to $100,000, every entrepreneur on the planet, because we're taught to hire people like they're commodities. How do you buy a commodity? You try to get most for least. So they're trying to pay 74.9, right? If the window is 75 to 100, they're trying to pay 74.9. I want to pay the absolute minimum and try to sneak my way in there and then squeeze somebody for more. 10% more than the high watermark is 110,000.
Mm-hmm.
So now between 74.9 and 110,000, that's a significant swing. I'm asking you to pay 35 grand more. But here's what's interesting, and this is the Pareto distribution. It's why we called our agency Pareto Talent. When you pay 10% more, you don't get 10% more, 20% more, 30% more. You get 5 times more, 10 times more, 100 times more. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being hyperbolic. This is a mathematical truism that's true in every organic ecosystem. It's the Pareto distribution. It's the 80-20 rule. 20% of your input results in 80% of your output. When I sold Solutions 8, one employee managed 40% of my revenue. His name was John Moran. He's the greatest Google Ads manager ever in the world. That's the hierarchical distribution of the Pareto distribution. Now, here's what's really interesting is most organizations try to flatten the hierarchy because they can see existential crisis on a spreadsheet and they think to themselves, I can't have one person responsible for 40% of my revenue. So they distribute the risk, quote unquote. But when you distribute the risk, when you flatten a hierarchy, you flatten it from the top, which means you take out all your top producers.
Mm-hmm.
So most businesses are structured to decentivize high performers.
Yep.
Instead of allowing one person to eat as much as they can possibly eat and produce as much as they can possibly produce, they think like, oh no, key man insurance, stop that. I want everybody to be average. Well, when everybody's average, what do we have? We have an organization that produces mediocrity by literal definition. Instead of engineering towards the Pareto distribution and saying, how do I get more John Morans? How do I get more people that produce like that? Now, is there a risk to it? Yeah, absolutely. I had to give John Moran equity. right? I had to slap golden handcuffs on him as fast as I possibly could. And thank God I did because I got an 8-figure exit out of it. I own 90, he owned 10. So will you find yourself in a position where somebody's producing so much that they become important enough for you to incentivize in a way that keeps them around? Yes. And that might be the best end result possible. Because it's pick your battle, it's choose your evil. It's either I'm going to have be surrounded by a bunch of mediocrity, or I'm going to be surrounded by a bunch of peak performers that perform so well. I have to make sure that our incentives are aligned to a degree that allows for longevity in this relationship.
So, a lot of great people that like, take Richard Branson, for example, right? When people look at somebody successful in life, they go, oh, Richard Branson's been pretty successful regardless
Mm,
of, and his philosophy was I keep at least 5%,
yeah,
right? And so part of the challenge I see with business owners when they're hiring is they look at this and they, especially when they're smaller, they think they got to hold as much money as possible for themselves.
right.
And I think that creates mediocrity in the process of hiring where, you know, and I've been through this with on the sales side of it, where it's like you could be a top producer, but then they're capping out. You're capping out, not even necessarily on, they're showing you the cap, but there's just so much you can do. And then the organization won't support that growth of that 40% that you were talking about.
Right.
They get afraid of doing those things, right? And so you'd be much better off giving somebody 10% of something that you can sell off at a higher multiple. If you own if your company grows from 100 million in sales to $1 billion in sales and you're doing it profitably and then you exit, I mean, even if you had 55% versus 90% at that point,
Oh, dude.
you're in a much better place, right? So
Yeah, at $1 billion exit. I mean, what somebody told me, I'd rather have a slice of a watermelon than a whole grape.
yeah, yeah.
And I
Right.
mean, that's just it. That's the way to think about all these things is our whole is greater than the sum of our parts, and to bring these peak performers in. I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs really go wrong. The more I've been beating this drum recently, the more I've realized, especially young entrepreneurs, and I can say this about myself, looking back, they're afraid of competence. They actually don't want smart, industrious, proactive people. They don't realize that it's subconscious, but they don't want to be challenged. They
Right.
don't want somebody to ask a question. They don't want somebody to come up with an idea that's better than theirs. They don't want to be outrun. Like they really want to be like, El Capitan, chief on the court. Like just and that's okay, but realize that's your key performance indicator. That's what you're hiring. You're hiring for that KPI and just be happy that you get to go out there and beat your chest and be the smartest person in the organization because that was the thing that you bought and built.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, I'm 40 years old. I'd rather just be rich. And so for me, my favorite thing in the world, my favorite answer to any question is I don't know. Hey, Kasim, where's the thing? I don't know. How do we? I don't know. Where is? I have no idea. Don't talk to me. Don't ask me. I'm not on the org chart because I've hired so many people that are so much smarter than me. The only thing I need to do is point you in the direction of this is the person that you need to go talk to.
Yep. Yeah, it was the Henry Ford philosophy,
Yeah, I know who to
right?
call.
It's like, I don't know the answer, but I got a button on my desk who I can introduce you to who can actually give you the answer.
Dude, that's exactly right. And it is a scary place to be. It's not that there aren't risks involved. I just lost my EA. She's one of the best I ever had. Her name was Josefina. She's a child psychologist by trade, but she lives in Argentina, and so she needed to supplement her income. And she's been my EA for a couple of years. She's one of the best I've ever had. And she ended up coming to me and saying, "Hey, I want to go back to psychology." And so she gave me ramp. She helped me find and train the replacement. And it's still, to lose a resource like that is so hard and it's so damaging. And the way to think about it is, well, gosh, I never want that to happen again. Okay, fine. But that means you don't get to that means I wouldn't have had the 2 years that I benefited from that
Right.
resource.
Oh,
So as much as it hurts is in direct proportion to the amount of value she was bringing to the table.
and the reality is that people are going to come and go no matter what through whatever attrition methodology. Some people retire, some people, get, deceased early, some
Right.
people get sick, some people this. And so on the sales side, what I've always told my clients is continuously recruit.
Yep.
You don't have to hire, but continuously recruit because it's like building a list in
Yep.
digital marketing,
You need
right?
a
And it's
pipeline.
like you have this when the need comes, they're part of that list will be open
Yeah.
to the thing. And that's where I see people making a mistake. And I also agree 100%. Like if you're going to hire like at $110,000, the really cool part about not and folks, neither one of us is saying we're anti-American, right? We're not saying that. We're not
Dude,
saying,
I'm saying that we won. We did it. We built a society where people don't have to work. So
right.
for most of the, level of analysis, it's like we're, red, white, and blue, wave a flag, pat ourselves on the back. And if you're an employer here, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, 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 and it is difficult. But the thing is $110,000 salary, US in Poland is going to be somewhere around $30,000.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that's what's really interesting and actually very sad. And if you dig into why so much of it is our fault, right? It's the petrodollar and artificially suppressing other currencies, and we could play woke war if we want to. So there's something about doing this that I actually feel is there's almost a moral obligation for us to provide meaningful work to people in international markets.
Mhm.
Uh, and to the point that you're making, if you pay somebody in India $1,000 a month.
Oh gosh, yeah,
Oh, dude, that's, you know what I mean? That's a doctor's salary over there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had a young man, this is one of my favorite stories of all time. Um, he made 9 times what his peers were making. I hired him from Google. So Google has 3 offices in India, and one of my tricks when I had a Google Ads agency is just to poach their best people. And the average Google specialist at Google in India at the time was making $500. He ended up making $4,500. So this kid is making 9 times what his peers are making. He bought his parents the first house the family ever owned, bought
Hmm.
himself a motorcycle. He got himself married, which in India is very, very, very important culturally and very expensive. Um, but I'm paying this kid $4,500. And I'm looking around at some other media buyers that are hiring internationally. They're like, what are you doing? Here's the thing. He managed my single biggest client, which is a publicly traded pet supplement company. They're paying me $54,000 a month.
Yeah,
So am I paying this kid $4,500? Yeah, I am. Was he the probably the best in the world? I could make that case. And I profited from it massively. But I was able to change his life. And the money is just a piece of it. When you pay people in international markets more, you influence the entire economy of that market because you're injecting spending power and then they spend. The other thing that you do is when you give somebody the ability to work from home, and work from home jobs are not the a priori ubiquitous truth internationally that they are here. It's a really big deal to be able to work from home, in
hmm
the Philippines, in Latin America. And if you let them work on a semi-flexible schedule, when I say semi-flexible, it's still a 9 to 5-ish, but they don't have to ask your permission to go to their daughter's ballet recital
right.
or to go to a dentist appointment. Um, it has such far-reaching implications. Just having a parent home, especially when it comes with children, teen gang involvement rate plummets, teen
Yep,
pregnancy plummets, drug use plummets.
yep.
Like it has a really, really, really big impact. So if you want to feel warm and fuzzy, and here's the thing, it's not an altruistic endeavor because you have the best employee you've ever had in your entire life, but you're also making an impact that you just can't make here. It's such a win-win, such a win-win.
I I agree with everything we're talking about on this call, and so hopefully, folks, by the end of this moment right now, you're thinking, hmm, and getting that thought in your head, like, okay, maybe what you're doing today still should work the way it is, but you got to at least think about human capital differently than you are today.
Yep,
And for those of you who are in that position where you're doing a routine job, please understand the way AI
it's
is
over.
going to start to flatten what you're doing. I'm telling people now, even on the setter side of the business, in the sales side, it's like, for 3.5 cents a minute, you can get, they can get pretty darn good quality, AI. And if none of you believe this, just call the Rio Hotel in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
I just stayed there, and they have an AI assistant called Rita,
yeah,
and Rita's really intelligent, really, really intelligent. I was impressed. And it is sad that, some people are not going to have their job because of Rita, but this is a technology, and all technologies have displaced certain things and brought other opportunities. I'm sure someone told their son or daughter, repair the steam engine forever and you will have generations to come, right? I'm sure somebody said the same thing about their automobile and the carburetor. I'm sure somebody had said the same thing about dial-up internet. This is, we're gonna be AOL forever, right? That type of
Mm,
thing, dominating, right? But everything changes, the the ATM changed banking. A lot of these things are going to happen, and AI is doing it, and it's doing it now.
right.
So, you can think about using AI as an employee, and the crazy part about this conversation for me, Kasim, is people now who are looking at AI, they're going, "Oh yeah, I'll do that." But when it comes to hiring talent outside, from other countries, they go, "Oh well, I don't know. That's not really." And it's like, dude, ma'am, you are replacing an employee with a technology,
Right.
right? The technology's life's not going to change. It doesn't care. If you're doing setters, AI setters, um, the technology doesn't really have the feelings, right? They don't have family, they don't have, kids, they don't have this, but you're still replacing the people who do.
Yeah.
So why not also look at this as human capital that you could utilize that and as you said, that gentleman in India, you enhanced his life in a great way. He enhanced yours in a great way. It's a win-win play. But he's buying a home for his family, his parents. He's getting married. He's doing all these things. And as you were saying, pregnancy rates drop, drug use rate drop, all these things. So we're actually reinvesting in humanity. A lot of people don't think like that. It drives me a little nutty because they will invest in a technology to eliminate a position, but they won't invest in another human being to eliminate that position with another human being because they think differently about that process. So I appreciate you being here so, so much. Um, if people want to know more about you, what you do, where they could find a little more information or contact you, how would they do so?
Yeah, they can go to kasim.me, Kasim.me. I actually have everything we've talked about. I built an entire framework for acquiring talent, and they can have it for free. There's no cost obligation, upsell or ascension. I have a workbook, templates, job posting board that they can look at to figure out where to go internationally based off of what type of tools they need, and they can have all that for free. Just go to kasim.me and download my free book.
Okay, so that's Kasim.me, Kasim.me, correct?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Excellent. I thank you so much for being here on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Bring in your A game and appreciate it. And I'd like to have you back down the line if you're open to it.
Oh, I'd love to do that. I think we have a lot to talk about, Doug. I appreciate you having me. Thank you. And thanks to
You're
everybody for
welcome.
listening.
All right. So what did you learn? Did you learn that no matter what, you can hire talent from all over the world? And that people from all over the world are as smart as any other place in the world. And you gotta make way a little bit for different culture, and you got to make a little way for people's time zones potentially. But if we're results focused, the time zone thing, a lot of that doesn't even matter, right? So if they can get done what you want them to get done in that time frame, then really when it comes down to it, you're winning, they're winning, and other people are winning throughout. I really like the idea about if you're hiring people the right way and you're able to give them the ability to be with their family and have a quality of life, that we see reduced challenges amongst the youth who have been raised that way. And that's a very noble pursuit in itself. So if you like this episode, I'm going to ask you, please give it a 5-star review. I know it takes a few minutes to do that, but I would be forever grateful in doing that. If you're interested in raising your revenues predictably, increasing your profits predictably, reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com by email, or if you want, hit me up on LinkedIn at Doug Brown 123. Let's have a chat and see what we can do to help you resolve that challenge, gain that opportunity, or get the goal that you've been looking for a period of time. All right, until next time, As I always say, go out and sell something, make people happy by playing win-win. Don't discount when you don't have to. It decreases your profitability, and you'll be surprised at how many sales you got to make up for the discount that you gave, even to break even and then to turn a profit. And again, if you have any comments on this podcast and you like to share them, reach out to us at youmatter, youmatter, at ceosalesstrategies.com. Share how to make it better and what you liked, what you didn't like. We answer all inquiries, no matter what they are. All right. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast saying to your success.